Welcome to Women Getting Lit, books with benefits for women over 50. Women Getting Lit is a book review podcast for women over 50 who prioritize their health and well-being. We're your hosts, Jennifer Hassey Morris and Sherry Israel, co-founders of Aging Greatly Enterprises. Aging Greatly supports women over 50 with practical strategies across 5 essential pillars for longevity and sustained quality of life as you age. Through our programs and coaching and community, you'll discover that aging greatly isn't about following someone else's formula. It's about designing a vibrant life that's authentically yours. Our mission is simple but powerful: to inspire you to add years to your life and life to your years. During our book review podcast, we will give you our personal evaluation of a book, walk through the key themes of the book and a personal takeaway, and a couple of action steps that you can implement. So, Sherry, what is our book for today?
Today, our book is called Why We Sleep, The Power of Sleep and Dreams by Dr. Matthew Walker. The book is truly one of our favorites as well. We first heard of Dr. Walker at a longevity conference, and he has since come up numerous times for other researchers, really referring to him as the leading sleep specialist. So, Dr. Walker is an author, professor, a scientist. He currently is I want to get this right, he is the professor of neuroscience and psychology at the University of California, Berkeley. He also serves as the director of the Center for Human Sleep Science. He does have an excellent podcast that we recommend. It's about 20 minutes long. It will get you hooked on the book. He has a great British accent, makes him easy to listen to. So you may also want to listen to his book on audio, which is a great way to get started. I did that, and what I found was I was so interested in what he was saying in the audiobook, I went right out and bought the actual book so I could be able to go through, outline some things, and make sure I really could put that to memory.
There are a couple of really great things that will catch your attention. So I'm going to read this from Dr. Walker's book. So I want you to imagine if you heard this advertisement. Scientists have discovered a revolutionary new treatment that makes you live longer. It enhances your memory and makes you more creative. It makes you look more attractive. It keeps you slim and lowers food cravings. It protects you from cancer and dementia. It wards off colds and flu. It lowers your risk of heart attacks and stroke, not to mention diabetes. You'll even feel happier, less depressed, and less anxious. Are you interested? Well, yes, sign me up. Now, if that was a drug, a prescription, you would go right out and ask your doctor to prescribe it. So that's like a paragraph that summarizes a good chunk of the book where he walks through all of the significant research studies that show the impact of sleep on all of those things that I just read, all of those things on your health and longevity. So I don't want to shortchange that. So Sherry, walk through like some of the key concepts in the book.
I would say there's probably 2 really main themes in the book. One is that sleep is non-negotiable, unequivocally essential to human life. And even you can exercise and diet as much as you can, and those are all really critical factors. But he'll say if you don't get enough sleep, those things are not as powerful as they otherwise would be. The second is that we must get 7 to 9 hours of sleep nightly. It is, again, an absolute. It must be something that we do. Dr. Walker acknowledges that sleep is something that we as humans tend to shortchange. We think that can be something we can bargain with. However, that is not true. That is not true. We're the only known species to deprive ourselves of sleep. And he will acknowledge in his book that sleep seems like an odd phenomenon, like what was Mother Nature thinking? During that period of time, you cannot eat, you cannot reproduce, you cannot care for your children, you cannot even protect yourself from a predator, whether that's a real predator or a environmental calamity of some sort. It seems like it's an odd phenomenon that shouldn't be. And yet we sleep on average 25 to 30 years of our life is spent doing this thing. Um, you can't prepare food. It's so important that it impacts every major system of your body, every tissue, every organ. It is that critical to your well-being.
It is amazing. There's so many different studies, and we do have this weird sort of cultural phenomenon of almost bragging about only getting 4 hours of sleep or pulling an all-nighter or something like that. But there are so many elements that he outlines in the book that even just sleeping less than 6 hours on a regular basis, it impacts your immune system. They've specifically related it to some increased risk of certain cancers. What were some of the other things that he highlight? Weight gain.
Your risk of Alzheimer's is increased. Your risk for having your blood sugar numbers be increased. Your attention span and creativity is affected. They said that in one study, in a 14-year study, 6 hours or less of sleep was associated with 3 times greater cardiovascular risk. It is just very impactful.
Wow. All right. Well, so for the benefit of people kind of thinking about if they want to listen or read, maybe it'd be good, Sherry, kind of walk through what there's 4 sections to the book, and maybe walk through that really briefly, and then we'll give you a couple of
The first
takeaways.
section really focuses on the biology of sleep and why you need that. The second one really refers to how sleep impacts your health, your ill health, and really focuses on the biology of sleep and why you need that. The second one really refers to how sleep impacts your health, your ill health, disease, and even death. If you do not get enough sleep, all those things are a factor. The third part really talks about REM sleep and the importance of dreams and the significance of that. And that part is really quite fascinating. And the fourth explores insomnia and other sleep challenges that people have and what you might be able to do to correct those. And that's basically the 4 parts of the book. The book also offers some great insights on things like light in your room, caffeine on your sleep ability, melatonin, and other things. It has some great insights, which I tell Jen and laugh about. But I love the part on he covers animals and birds. Birds will sleep with only half their brain and their one eye open and one eye closed, and they shift throughout the night. But they have some really great stuff. But there's a number of things on sleep issues that people have that he addresses in the book. One thing that Jen and I talked about that we really feel like we'd be remiss and not doing justice to what Dr. Walker indicated in the book, he really stresses over and over again how critical it is that you do not drive drowsy. And if you have less than 6 hours of sleep, you should not be on the road. And he states that 1 person every hour in the US dies from a fatality accident caused by somebody driving drowsy. And he'll talk about it could be you driving drowsy, or it could be you or your family member who is on the other end of that car accident. And you don't want to be the person who causes that. So he stated that is the one takeaway he'd like to see people get from the book.
Yeah, and a lot of that in the news, a lot of research, inattentive driving, even more dangerous than drunk driving. So really important. All right, well, we always promise you in this podcast that we will share something personal, like something that either really got our attention or some, kind of key takeaway that we maybe started implementing right away or started telling other people about. So Sherry, what was yours? And then I'll
For me,
add mine.
it was having the understanding that while I sleep or anyone sleeps, the toxins around your brain that have accumulated throughout the day are washed away through your spinal cord fluid, but that only happens during sleep. There were other phenomena as well, like, knowing that my blood sugar gets rebalanced at that time and so forth. But I think having those toxins flushed away, I didn't even know that was a thing. So I found that one really interesting. The book really is outstanding. It even got the attention of my 26-year-old daughter. She read it and she quotes it to her friends, and I find that very comical, but also makes me feel good too. So that would be my big takeaway, is that there's a number of functions occurring while we sleep that I had no idea. You assume your body's just out. But no, there's actually things happening that are very essential that only happen during sleep.
Yeah, that was, I mean, that was key, significant for both of us, really, just thinking of it in terms of rest, not thinking of it as resetting, but that everything that has to happen. When I was going back and reviewing what I wanted to share on the podcast, I was reminded about the part that our brain actually, as we're sleeping, our brain actually paralyzes the body so that we don't act out our dreams, which my husband can tell you is pretty helpful here because I have some pretty active dreams. My latest one was I just got a new job. My husband was thrilled to know I got a new job working in the NCIS office in Rome, and I was reporting directly to Gibbs. So I was pretty excited about that. So that part about understanding our dreams and impact of our dreams, that was that was another personal takeaway, really thinking about the scientific explanations of REM sleep, non rapid eye movement sleep, and REM sleep, and deep sleep, and also the usefulness of our dreams. Many years ago, I did a dream journal as soon as I would wake up because I dream every night in pretty great detail, as you can tell. And I was journaling that, and I had gotten away from that practice. There were some things that I am noticing now that he said about, some of those benefits, that usefulness of dreams. I'm like, oh yeah. So that if I really pay closer attention to my sleep hygiene, I think I would get that boost of memory and creativity and, several of those things. One of the things, related to that, that at about the time that Sherry and I were really starting Aging Greatly, I was really kind of in this struggle with, kind of on and off periodic insomnia, and really trying to figure out, I was trying to go back to what are the things that used to work, what are the things that used to work, and they didn't work anymore. So rather than being frustrated, what was helpful for me, I went back through this and either tried some new things that he suggested or went back and tried some things that maybe did work for me 10 years ago, tried them again. So it's always good to arm yourself with that information, right? So to that end, we always promise on this podcast that we'll give you 2 action steps. Whether or not you choose to read the book, we'll give you 2 things that you could implement right away. So I'll kick us off. And I really will start with what we hammer pretty hard in our courses and everything, all the resources that we share with our community. Do whatever it takes to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. Be intentional about it. Be honest with yourself about your sleep routine and what you put in place. Do some research. Watch that TED Talk, read the book, listen to his lovely British accent. Really make sure that you implement even just a couple of new sleep strategies. Lowering the thermostat at night, darkening your room. One of the things I'm going to have to do is switch back to reading the book rather than reading the book on my device. So it's one of those things that really was still working for me up until actually about a year ago, 6 months ago, even. So that is one of the things. If you take that kind of personal action step, I want you to remember it one of 2 ways. Either just think in your head, being intentional about 7 to 9 hours of sleep, or in his appendix, he lists 12 tips for healthy sleeping. And he says, if you remember just one thing, stick to a sleep schedule. Go to bed and wake up at the same time each day. We're recording this in the morning during a time when Sherry and I normally check in with each other each week. So sticking to that schedule. So that's the action step, that we would recommend.
Step would be to cut down on your caffeine and do not consume caffeine past 2 p.m. So a number of people are susceptible to caffeine, and caffeine has a half-life, which means it reduces down to about 50% of its potency, and it takes 5 to 7 hours before that occurs. So if you're taking quite a bit of caffeine in, you're really harming your sleep. You have a chemical in your body that builds up throughout the day that's going to cause you to go to sleep. However, caffeine blocks that chemical and it isn't able to do its job to put you to sleep. Now, he also warns you that if you do that, you'll stay awake, but then you're going to have a caffeine crash, because when that caffeine does hit, is diminished, then what's going to happen is the chemical didn't stop building up. It just never got released. And then it's going to really have built up and you're going to have a crash. So he recommends strongly that you limit your caffeine and limit it. Definitely don't consume it after 2 p.m. for the best possible sleep.
And you know how, like, in the spirit of we talk about this stuff and this stuff is in our courses and all of that, and yet I had a late afternoon meeting at Starbucks and they had the peppermint mocha out, and so I had a peppermint mocha at about 3:30, and I'm here to tell you it impacted my sleep. And it didn't even occur to me until the next day when I was preparing my notes for this podcast.
It comes back to what you'd said earlier too about the sleep. It's almost, you have to be so intentional to create a new habit. Because for me, that's also a time of day in which I would consume caffeine. Is more, my choice is more later in the day. And I'll do it and I'll go, oh, dang it, I forgot. So yeah, I do that too. It's a
Yeah.
learning experience for anyone. Read the book, understand it, then you'll have to pick some things maybe you want to implement. And then you'll go back and maybe implement some more things, because it really is something you have to be intentional about.
It is. It is. All right. Well, we hope we gave you a couple of things just to pique your curiosity. Thank you for joining us on Women Getting Lit, Books with Benefits for Women Over 50. We hope that you enjoy Why We Sleep, Unlocking the Power of Sleep and Dreams. Follow us to make sure you get the next book review. See you next week.